The night my father erased me happened between the second chorus of Silent Night and the clink of champagne glasses, in a room full of 200 people who had known me since I was born. It was Christmas Eve, 2024, in my family's mansion on Beacon Hill in Boston. The air smelled of pine and roasted ham. A string quartet played softly near the grand staircase. Firelight danced across crystal glasses and polished silver. Everything was perfect. Everything was a performance. I was standing near the edge of the living room, holding a glass of mulled wine I had not sipped, when my father tapped his champagne flute with a silver spoon. The room fell silent. 200 faces turned toward him with smiles and expectation. He cleared his throat, looked out at his audience, and began the speech that would end with 4 words I will never forget. You should have never existed. I did not cry. I did not scream. I smiled, looked him directly in the eyes, and said something that made the room gasp. Then consider me dead. And I walked out without looking back. 20 minutes later, the whole house erupted. But I did not know that yet. I was already gone. My name is Harper. I was 28 years old that night. I worked as a senior financial analyst at one of Boston's most respected investment firms. I had built my career with my own hands, my own hours, my own sacrifice. None of it mattered to my father. To him, I was always the afterthought, the mistake, the daughter who should have been a son. The Donovan mansion had been decorated for weeks. $12,000 worth of flowers, my mother Judith had mentioned while suggesting I contribute to the cost. White lights wrapped around every banister. A 15-foot Christmas tree dominated the corner of the main living room, ornaments collected over 4 decades glittering under carefully placed spotlights. 200 guests filled the space: business partners, church congregation members, local politicians, old money families who had known the Donovan name for generations. Everyone who mattered in Boston society was there, dressed in their holiday finest, performing warmth and connection. I stood alone near the fireplace, watching my family work the room. My father, Richard, moved through the crowd like a king holding court. He laughed loudly at jokes that were not funny. He clapped men on their backs and kissed women on their cheeks. He was the CEO of Donovan Properties, a real estate company that had been in our family for 3 generations. To everyone in that room, he was a success, a patriarch, a man worth admiring. My mother Judith floated beside him, her hand occasionally resting on his arm, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. She was the perfect hostess. She always was. She touched arms and whispered greetings and made everyone feel seen, everyone except me. And then there was Brandon, my younger brother, 25 years old and already named COO of the family company. He stood at the center of a circle of admirers, telling stories about turning the business around, accepting praise for accomplishments he had not earned. His wife Lily stood a few steps behind him, silent and watchful. I noticed her looking at me once, but when our eyes met, she quickly looked away. A woman I did not recognize leaned toward her companion and whispered something while looking in my direction. I caught only a fragment. Is that the daughter who... The sentence died unfinished, but I understood. In this family, I was always the daughter who, the one who left, the one who did not fit, the one they discussed in half-sentences and meaningful glances. The string quartet shifted into a slow arrangement of "O Holy Night" as my father moved toward the center of the room. He tapped his glass again, and the conversations faded. My mother positioned herself beside him, her hand finding its familiar place on his arm. Brandon stepped forward, straightening his tie, preparing for his moment. I stayed where I was. My heart rate was already climbing, though I did not yet know why. My father began his speech with the usual words: family, legacy, gratitude. He thanked everyone for coming. He talked about the importance of tradition, of gathering, of supporting one another through the years. Then his voice shifted. He talked about challenges the company had faced, about difficult times 2 years ago that had tested them, about how they had emerged stronger. I knew what he was not saying. I knew the truth he would never speak aloud in this room. Then he turned to Brandon. He announced that his son would officially become CEO within 2 years. That Brandon had proven himself. That Brandon was the future of Donovan Properties. The room erupted in applause. Glasses were raised. Someone shouted to the Donovans, and 200 people echoed the toast. I watched my brother accept praise for work he had never done. I watched my father beam with pride at the son who had nearly destroyed everything. I watched my mother smile as if this narrative was truth instead of theater. And I said nothing. I had learned long ago that silence was safer. Brandon's eyes found me across the room. He smirked. The same smirk he had worn as a child when he broke my things and faced no consequences. The same smirk that said, "I know something you do not." I held his gaze until he looked away. The applause faded. Conversations resumed. I thought the worst was over. I was wrong. My father approached me 20 minutes later. His smile was still in place, but his eyes were cold. My mother followed close behind, her expression tight with something I recognized as warning. They stopped in front of me, close enough that nearby guests could hear every word. He said the family needed to show unity. He said it was time I did something useful. He said I should sign over my shares in Donovan Properties to Brandon. My shares were small, a token percentage left to me by my grandfather. But they were mine. The only piece of the family legacy I had ever been given. I told him quietly that my shares were mine, and I would not be signing anything tonight. I suggested we discuss it privately after the holidays. His face changed. The performance dropped. He accused me of being selfish, jealous, difficult. He said I contributed nothing to the family. His voice rose with each accusation. People nearby stopped their conversations to listen. He said, "Everything we have given you, and this is how you repay us." I noticed my mother's hand trembling on his arm. Not from concern for me, from fear of a scene. I kept my voice steady. I said no. 3 letters. 1 word. Final. That was when he said it. His face twisted with something I had seen glimpses of my whole life, but never so naked, so public. He looked at me like I was not his daughter but an obstacle, a problem to be eliminated. And he said the words that changed everything. "You should have never existed. This family would have been better off without you." The room went silent. The string quartet stopped mid-note. A woman near the fireplace gasped. Someone dropped a fork on a plate, and the clatter sounded like an explosion in the stillness. 200 people held their breath. I felt something shift inside me. Not break, shift. Like a lock clicking open after decades of being jammed. I had spent 28 years trying to earn a place in this family, sending money, keeping quiet, making myself small. And here was the truth, finally spoken aloud. I was not wanted. I had never been wanted. I had simply been tolerated. The realization did not destroy me. It freed me. I did not cry. I did not argue. I smiled, small, steady, real. Then consider me dead. My voice was clear enough for everyone to hear. I set down my untouched wine glass on the nearest table. I walked to the coat rack near the front door. I put on my coat slowly, deliberately, aware of every eye in the room following me. My heels clicked against the marble floor, the only sound. I opened the front door. Cold December air rushed in, carrying snowflakes that melted on the threshold. I stepped outside without looking back. The door closed behind me. I did not know that I had left my handbag on the sofa near the entrance. I did not know that inside that bag were documents that would change everything. I did not know that in 20 minutes someone would find them, and the room I had just left would erupt into chaos. I only knew one thing as I walked toward my car, snow falling gently on my shoulders, the sounds of the party muffled behind me. I was finally free, and freedom, I would soon learn, has a price. One my family was about to pay. I learned what happened next from Lily. Weeks later, over coffee in a quiet corner of a Back Bay cafe, she told me everything. Her voice still trembled as she described it, her hands wrapped around her cup like she was holding onto something solid in a world that had shifted beneath her feet. She said she would never forget the 20 minutes after I walked out that door. Neither would anyone else who was there. The party tried to resume. That was what she told me first. My father laughed too loudly at something no one had said. He waved his hand dismissively and announced to the guests nearest him that it was just family drama. You know how daughters can be. Some people laughed nervously, others exchanged glances that said more than words ever could. My mother circulated through the room, touching arms, whispering reassurances. She has been under so much stress lately. The holidays are difficult for her, excuses wrapped in concern, designed to rewrite what 200 people had just witnessed. Brandon stood near the bar, drinking whiskey faster than he should have. Lily said his smirk had faded the moment the door closed behind me. Something harder had taken its place. He kept glancing toward the entrance, as if expecting me to return and apologize, to take back what I had said, to resume my role as the family disappointment who never caused real trouble. But the door stayed closed. I did not come back. The string quartet started playing again, but the music felt wrong now, forced. Guests began making excuses. Long drive tomorrow, children waiting at home, early morning obligations. The party was dying and everyone knew it. They had come to celebrate the Donovan family. Instead, they had witnessed its fracture. Lily stood apart from the others, watching. She had not said a word since I left, but her eyes kept drifting to something on the sofa near the entrance. A handbag. Navy leather, simple and elegant. She recognized it as mine. She walked over and picked it up. Her first thought was practical. I might need my phone, my keys. She could set it aside somewhere safe, maybe give it to my mother to return later. She unzipped it and looked inside. There was no phone. I must have had it in my coat pocket. But there was a folder. A thick manila envelope, unsealed, with a name printed on the tab that made her breath catch. HD Capital, Donovan Properties Investment Agreement. Lily knew that name. She had heard my father mention HD Capital before. Always with a grudging respect he rarely showed anyone. HD Capital was the mysterious investor who had saved the company 2 years ago, the silent partner who had injected millions into Donovan Properties when it was on the verge of collapse. My father spoke of HD Capital like a savior. Brandon always changed the subject whenever the name came up. Lily knew she should close the folder. She knew she should hand it to my father and walk away. But something stopped her. Something in the way I had walked out of that room. The calm in my voice when I said, "Consider me dead." The way I had not looked back. She pulled out the first page. The document was dense with legal language, but the key details were clear. Investment agreement between HD Capital LLC and Donovan Properties Incorporated. Investment amount $2.3 million. Date January 15, 2023. Purpose emergency capital infusion to prevent insolvency. Terms silent partnership, no board seat, no public acknowledgement. Lily turned to the second page. A letter from an attorney named Catherine Walsh. Dated December 20th, 2024, just 4 days before Christmas. The subject line read, "Scheduled withdrawal of investment, effective January 2nd. The letter confirmed that the investor had initiated a complete withdrawal. 30-day notice period satisfied. Withdrawal to be executed on January 2nd, 2025. Lily's hands were shaking now. She turned to the third document. A single page, handwritten. She recognized my handwriting from birthday cards and sympathy notes, neat, controlled. The words were clearly a draft, never finished, never sent. To the family who wished I had never existed. I saved you once. You used that time to erase me further. Consider this my final goodbye." Lily looked up from the papers. Across the room my father was laughing at something a guest had said, completely unaware that his empire was built on borrowed time. Borrowed from the daughter he had just told should never have existed. She did not have long to process what she had found. My father noticed her sitting on the sofa. He broke away from his conversation and walked toward her, irritation in his stride. His voice was sharp. "Lily, what are you doing sitting down? We have guests." Then he saw the folder in her hands. His eyes narrowed. "What is that?" Lily hesitated. 1 heartbeat. 2. She could lie. She could hide the documents. She could protect the illusion for a little longer. But something in her refused. The same something I had awakened when I walked out that door. I found Harper's bag. There were documents inside. Her voice was steady, though her heart was pounding. "I think you need to see this." She held out the folder. My father snatched it from her hands. He flipped it open impatiently. His eyes scanned the first page, then the second. His face changed. The color drained from his cheeks. His jaw tightened until the muscles stood out like cables. He read it again, as if the words might rearrange themselves into something less devastating. They did not. His hands began to shake. "Who the hell is HD Capital?" His voice came out as a whisper, broken and foreign, but he already knew. Lily could see it in his eyes. The initials had been there all along. H.D. Harper Donovan, his daughter, the one he had just told should never have existed. She was H.D. Capital. She had saved his company. She had been keeping him alive for 2 years, and he had never known. What happened next was chaos. My father stormed toward the center of the room. He forgot the guests, forgot the performance, forgot everything except the papers clutched in his fist. He screamed for my mother. "Judith. Now." Conversation stopped mid-sentence. The string quartet faltered again. My mother hurried over, her face pale with confusion and fear. "Richard, what is it?" "The guests." He shoved the documents into her hands. Read it. She read. Her hand flew to her mouth. "This cannot be right. There must be a mistake. There is no mistake." My father's voice cracked on the words. "Our daughter, the one you said we should have stopped at Brandon. She has been keeping us alive for 2 years." Brandon pushed through the crowd, whiskey sloshing in his glass. "What is going on? What did she do now?" My father handed him the withdrawal letter. Brandon read it, then laughed, a short, disbelieving bark. "She is bluffing. She does not have that kind of money." My father's voice was ice. "She does. She had it all along. The room was frozen." 200 guests stood like statues, champagne glasses suspended, mouths slightly open. Some were already reaching for their coats. Others had their phones out, though whether to call someone or record the spectacle, Lily could not tell. The Donovan family's perfect facade was cracking in real time, and everyone was watching. My father read the date on the withdrawal letter aloud. January 2nd. "She is pulling everything out on January 2nd. My mother's voice was barely a whisper. "That is in 9 days." Brandon finally understood. The arrogance drained from his face. "The company will collapse." My father nodded slowly. "Yes. And we just told her she should never have existed." The exodus began within minutes. No more polite excuses. People simply left. Coats were grabbed hastily, goodbyes mumbled or skipped entirely. Within 10 minutes, the mansion had emptied. 200 guests became ghosts, slipping away from a sinking ship. Only family remained. My father slumped into his chair, documents still clutched in his fist. My mother paced the room, mascara smeared, whispering what might have been prayers or curses. Brandon hurled his whiskey glass into the fireplace. The crystal shattered, amber liquid spraying across the logs with a hiss. Lily stood by the window, looking out at the snow. She thought about me driving away alone into the night. She thought about the calm in my voice when I said, "Consider me dead." She thought about the documents in that bag. "I knew," she told me later, "I knew you had left them on purpose. Or maybe you had not. Maybe it was an accident. But either way, I understood something in that moment." She paused, her coffee growing cold between her hands. "You were not running away from your family, Harper. You were finally letting them see what they had been standing on all along. And it was not their foundation. It was yours. And you had every right to take it back." That night, As the last guest's car pulled away and the fairy lights on the Christmas tree flickered in an empty room, Lily made a decision. She would not tell Brandon what she was thinking. She would not tell my father what she had noticed. But she would find a way to contact me. Because she recognized something in the way I had walked out that door. The quiet strength of a woman who had finally stopped asking for permission to exist. And Lily wanted to learn how I had done it. The drive home was quieter than I expected. Snow fell gently against my windshield as I navigated the familiar streets of Boston, streetlights casting orange halos through the white haze. The radio was off. The only sounds were the rhythm of my wipers and my own steady breathing. I kept waiting for the panic to arrive, the tears, the regret, the desperate urge to turn around and apologize for causing a scene. None of it came. Instead, there was something I had never felt before. A deep, settling quiet, like a storm that had finally passed after raging for 28 years. My hands were steady on the wheel. My jaw was unclenched for the first time in hours. I caught my reflection in the rearview mirror and barely recognized the woman looking back at me. She looked tired, but she also looked clear, like someone who had finally set down a weight she had been carrying so long she forgot it was there. He finally said out loud what he had been saying with his silence my entire life. That thought surfaced and settled without destroying me. The truth once spoken cannot be unspoken. And somehow, that was a relief. I no longer had to wonder. I no longer had to hope. I knew exactly where I stood. Nowhere. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. Once, twice. Then continuously, vibrating against my hip like something alive and angry. I did not reach for it. Whatever was happening back at that house, it was no longer my fire to put out. The lights were on in my apartment when I pulled up to the building. Third floor of a converted Victorian in Back Bay. Warm light glowing through the windows like a promise. Marcus's car was already in the guest spot. He had chosen to wait for me instead of attending the party. He said he did not trust himself to stay quiet if my father said something cruel. I had told him he was overreacting. I had been wrong. I climbed the stairs slowly, each step feeling heavier than the last. Not from despair, from release. It is exhausting to finally let go of something you have been gripping for decades. My key turned in the lock. The door opened. And there he was. Marcus was on the couch, laptop open, pretending to work. But I knew he had been watching the door, waiting. His face shifted the moment he saw me. Not surprise, recognition. He knew something had happened. He could read it in the way I moved, the way I breathed, the way I stood in the doorway without speaking. He did not ask what happened. He simply stood, crossed the room, and wrapped his arms around me. He held me in silence for a long moment, his heartbeat steady against my cheek, his warmth seeping through my coat. Then, softly, he said I made tea. It is still warm. I leaned into him and let myself be held. I breathed, really breathed. For the first time that night. Then I pulled back and looked at his face. His eyes searched mine, looking for cracks. He found none. And I could see that worried him more than tears would have. We sat together on the couch, teacups in hand, steam rising between us. The lamp cast a soft glow across the room. Snow was still falling outside the window, muffling the sounds of the city. The apartment felt like a sanctuary, a place where the rules of my family did not apply. I told him everything. The party, the guests, the performance of warmth and success. Brandon's announcement and the applause I had watched from the edges. My father's demand for my shares, my refusal. His escalation, the accusations, selfish, jealous, difficult. And then the words, "You should have never existed. This family would have been better off without you." Marcus's hand found mine and squeezed. His jaw tightened, but he did not interrupt. He let me tell the story at my own pace. I told him about my response. Then consider me dead. The walk to the door. The silence of 200 people watching. The cold air on my face. The door closing behind me. When I finished, he exhaled slowly. His thumb traced circles on my palm. "What do you want to do now?" His voice was gentle but direct. No one had asked me that question in years. I paused. Thought about it honestly. Nothing. I want to do nothing. I want to let the silence speak for me. He nodded. He did not try to fix it. He did not offer solutions or advice or platitudes about how family was complicated. He simply said then, "That is what we do." And I realized this was what safety felt like. Not the absence of pain, the presence of someone who did not require me to perform. I had told him almost everything. Almost. I had not mentioned the handbag I left behind, the documents inside, the withdrawal scheduled for January 2nd. Some truths, I decided, could wait until morning. My phone was vibrating on the kitchen counter where I had left it. It had not stopped since I walked in the door. The screen lit up continuously with calls, texts, notifications, a chorus of demands from people who had not spoken to me in months, suddenly desperate to reach me. I walked to the counter, picked up the phone, did not look at the messages. One by one, I blocked numbers. Richard Donovan, blocked. Judith Donovan, blocked. Brandon Donovan, blocked. Each tap felt like a door closing. And for once, I was the one holding the key. Marcus watched from the couch. He did not tell me to reconsider. He did not suggest I might regret it. He simply witnessed me reclaiming my peace. I set the phone face down on the counter and returned to the couch. The buzzing continued, muffled now. I ignored it completely. 23 missed calls, 41 text messages. I did not read a single one. I already knew what they would say, and for the first time in my life, I did not care. Later, sitting in the quiet with Marcus beside me, my hand drifted to the locket at my throat. An old habit, a comfort. The locket had been my grandmother's. Eleanor Whitmore Donovan, the only person in my family who ever truly saw me. The memory surfaced unbidden. I was 10 years old. Summer afternoon at grandmother's house on Cape Cod. Ocean breeze drifting through open windows. The smell of lavender and old books. I was crying in the sunroom. Grandmother Eleanor found me there, her footsteps soft on the wooden floor. She sat beside me without asking what was wrong. She waited until I was ready to tell her. Brandon broke my science project, the one I had worked on for 3 weeks. I was supposed to present it at school tomorrow. Mom said, "Let it go, he is just a boy." Dad said, "Stop being so dramatic." No one punished Brandon. No one even apologized. Grandmother took my hands in hers. Her skin was soft, thin with age, but her grip was firm. She looked into my eyes with full attention, the way no one else in my family ever did. "Harper, listen to me. You are not too much. You are not too sensitive. You are exactly right. The people who cannot see your worth are the ones with limited vision, not you." Then she did something I have never forgotten. She reached behind her neck and unclasped the locket she had worn for 50 years, the one her mother had given her. She placed it around my neck and fastened it gently. This was my mother's. Now it is yours. Whenever you forget who you are, touch this. Remember that someone saw you. Someone knew. I wore that locket every day after. Through middle school, through high school, through college and my first job and every family dinner where I felt invisible. I wore it the night my father erased me in front of 200 people. I was wearing it now. Eleanor died when I was 18, a heart attack, sudden and swift. At her funeral, I stood at the grave and cried openly. My father whispered to my mother, "She is making a scene. Can she not control herself?" I heard every word. The family said there was no will, no inheritance. Eleanor's estate had gone to medical bills and taxes. There was nothing left. I believed them. I was too deep in grief to question it. But grandmother had promised to take care of me. "I have made arrangements," she said, weeks before she died. Arrangements that never came. Or so I had believed. Until a lawyer named Catherine Walsh found me 2 months ago. The memories kept coming. 12 years old. I won the regional spelling bee. At dinner that night, the conversation centered entirely on Brandon's soccer tryout. No one mentioned the trophy in my bag. 15 years old. I was accepted into the honors program at school. My father's response was, "Do not let it go to your head. Brandon has natural talent. You just work hard," the implication clear. Effort was inferior to giftedness. 17 years old. My college counselor called home with news. Full scholarship offers from 3 universities. My mother's response was, "We need to focus on Brandon's applications. He needs more help than you do." I applied alone, accepted alone, packed alone, 18 years old, grandmother's funeral. The only one who ever saw me, gone. Every milestone erased, every achievement minimized, every tear criticized. I spent 18 years learning one lesson. I did not matter. It took another 10 years to unlearn it. I opened my eyes. Marcus was watching me quietly. I had been silent for several minutes, lost in memory. I did not explain where I had gone. I did not need to. He knew enough. He saw enough. "Are you okay?" His voice was soft. A simple question. Everyone asks it. But Marcus meant it differently. He wanted the real answer. I thought about it. I did not perform. I did not deflect. For the first time I said slowly, "Yes, I think I am." He pulled me closer. His arms wrapped around me like a promise. He said out loud what I always knew he felt. And instead of destroying me, it set me free. I spent 28 years trying to earn a place that was never offered. Tonight, I stopped trying. Marcus pressed his lips to my hair. Then tonight is the beginning, not the end. I rested my head on his shoulder. Snow continued falling outside. The phone had finally gone silent. Perhaps they had given up. Perhaps the battery had died. I did not check. I closed my eyes, grandmother's locket warm against my chest. I had walked into that party as the daughter who was never enough. I walked out as a woman who finally knew her own worth. The family I was born into had rejected me. But sitting here, in the warmth of a home I had built myself, beside a man who chose me without conditions, I understood something my father never would. Family is not blood. Family is who stays when staying is a choice. And Marcus had chosen to stay. Christmas morning arrived without fanfare. I woke before dawn in my quiet apartment, gray winter light filtering through the curtains. Marcus still asleep beside me. For a moment I lay still, listening to his breathing, waiting for the familiar knot of anxiety that always accompanied holiday mornings, the dread of family obligations, the mental preparation for another day of being invisible. But the knot did not come. There was only silence, real silence, the kind that belongs to you. I slipped out of bed carefully and made my way to the kitchen. Coffee first. Always coffee first. I stood at the window watching the steam rise from my mug, watching Boston wake up beneath a blanket of fresh snow. The world looked peaceful. Paused. Like it was holding its breath between what was and what would be. I thought about what my family was doing right now, probably still in shock, probably blaming me, probably rewriting the story so my father remained the hero and I became the villain who ruined Christmas. The thought did not sting the way it once would have. I felt no guilt, and that absence of guilt was new, unfamiliar. Like wearing clothes that finally fit after years of squeezing into something too small. My laptop sat on the kitchen counter, closed. Inside it were files I had not opened in months, records of everything I had done 2 years ago to save the people who wished I had never been born. I stared at it for a long moment. Part of me wanted to delete everything, to move forward without looking back. But another part knew that before I could truly let go, I needed to remember. I needed to face what I had done and understand why. I opened the laptop and navigated to an encrypted folder. HD capital, private, password protected. I typed it slowly, watching the letters appear as dots on the screen. The files loaded, contracts, bank transfers, correspondence. The architecture of a secret I had carried alone for 2 years. I clicked on the first document, dated January 8, 2023. The beginning of everything. 2 years ago, I discovered a truth that should have destroyed my family. Instead, I chose to save them. This is how it happened. It was a Tuesday evening in January 2023. I was working late at my office, finishing an analysis for a client, when an email arrived in my inbox. Wrong recipient. Clearly misdirected. The sender was a commercial lender I had worked with on a different deal months earlier. The subject line made my stomach tighten. Donovan Properties. Loan default warning. I should have deleted it. It was not meant for me. But something made me click. Call it instinct. Call it fate. Call it the universe finally deciding I deserved to know the truth. The email was devastating. Donovan Properties was 3 months behind on a $2.8 million loan. Default proceedings would begin within 30 days. The company's credit lines were maxed out. Assets had been leveraged against multiple loans. The lender was demanding immediate resolution or they would begin seizing collateral. My father's company, the family legacy he never stopped talking about. The business my brother was supposedly running as COO. It was dying, and no one had told me. I should have closed the email and walked away. Instead, I started digging. I used every skill I had developed as a financial analyst. I pulled public records, cross-referenced filings, traced cash flows through quarterly reports. What I found was worse than the email suggested. Donovan Properties was not just struggling. It was hemorrhaging money. At the current rate, they had 6 weeks of operating capital left. Maybe less. The numbers did not lie. 53 employees depended on that company for their paychecks. The receptionist, Maria, who had worked there for 20 years. Tom, the maintenance supervisor with 3 kids. Young agents just starting their careers. None of them had any idea they were weeks away from unemployment. I kept digging. I needed to understand how this had happened. My father was arrogant, but he was not stupid. He had run that company for 30 years. How had it come to this? The answer was in the cash flow statements. Large withdrawals had started 18 months earlier, all authorized by Brandon as COO, categorized as business development and client entertainment. But the amounts did not match any legitimate business activity. 50,000 here, 75,000 there, sometimes 100,000 in a single week, always on Fridays, always round numbers, always cash or wire transfers to accounts I did not recognize. I knew that pattern. I had seen it in fraud cases at my firm. This was not business development. This was gambling. My brother had been gambling with company money, chasing losses with bigger bets, the classic spiral that destroys everything it touches. I called a contact who worked in forensic accounting. Without naming names, I described what I was seeing. Her response confirmed my worst fears. Classic gambling debt spiral. Whoever is doing this is in deep, and they are not going to stop until someone makes them. Brandon had gambled away nearly $2 million of company money. He had hidden it with creative accounting that my father either did not understand or did not want to see. The golden child, the heir apparent, the son who could do no wrong. He had nearly destroyed everything. I remember the moment the full picture came into focus. I was sitting in my apartment at 3 a.m, surrounded by printouts and notes, and I threw up. Twice. Not from fear. From the weight of knowing something I could never unknow. I had options. I could do nothing. Let the company fail. Watch my family face the consequences of their own choices. There was a certain justice in that. They had never valued me. Why should I save them? Or I could tell my father the truth. Expose Brandon. Become the messenger who delivered news no one wanted to hear. But I knew how that would end. My father would find a way to blame me. He always did. The family would close ranks around Brandon. They always did. And I would be cast out for daring to speak the truth. There was a third option. One that made no logical sense. One that went against every instinct for self-preservation I had developed over 28 years of being dismissed and diminished. I could save them. quietly, anonymously, without ever letting them know. I kept coming back to the 53 employees. Maria with her kind smile and her 20 years of loyal service. Tom, who coached Little League on weekends and always asked about my day when I visited the office. The young agents with student loans and apartment leases and dreams they were building one commission at a time. None of them had caused this disaster. All of them would suffer for it. Could I watch innocent people lose their jobs just to punish a family that never valued me? Could I let 53 families face financial ruin because my father and brother were too proud and too reckless to see what they had done? The answer came to me as the sun rose over Boston. I could not save my family, but I could save the people they would have destroyed. I created HD Capital LLC within a week. The initials were a private joke. Harper Donovan, hiding in plain sight. I hired an attorney outside Boston, someone with no connection to my family. All communications would go through her. My name would appear nowhere in public documents. HD Capital would be a ghost that wrote very real checks. The investment was $2.3 million. My entire life savings. $800,000 I had scraped together over years of careful living and smart investments, plus a loan against my future earnings. $1.5 million that I would spend a decade paying back. I did it anyway. I insisted on specific terms. No board seat. No public acknowledgement. But one clause was non-negotiable. Full withdrawal rights with 30 days' notice. My attorney asked why. I told her it was insurance, in case they proved me right about them. The wire transfer went through on February 1st, 2023. $2.3 million. My entire financial future sent to save people who had never sent me so much as a thank you card. The confirmation email arrived at 3:47 in the afternoon. I stared at it for an hour. Then I deleted it and went back to work. 1 month later, I attended a family dinner. My father was in an expansive mood, cheerful, boastful. The crisis had passed, and he had already rewritten the story in his head. We secured a major investor, he announced over roast beef and red wine. HD Capital. Very private, very serious money. I always knew the company was solid, just needed the right people to see it. Brandon raised his glass, relief barely hidden beneath his smirk. My mother smiled and nodded. The golden child had been saved, and no one needed to know how close he had come to destroying everything. I sat at the table and ate quietly. Brandon talked about his turnaround strategy. My father praised his steady hand during tough times. Not once did either of them look at me. Not once did anyone mention the near collapse or ask how close they had come to losing everything. They toasted Brandon that night. They called him a hero. I smiled and said nothing, the taste of sacrifice bitter on my tongue. I had saved them all, and they had thanked my brother. That was the night I understood. Gratitude would never come from this family. Only the truth could set me free. And the truth had a deadline. I closed the laptop as Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway, sleepy-eyed and rumpled. He walked over and wrapped his arms around me from behind, kissed my hair. "You are up early. Old habits." He saw the laptop, the encrypted folder still visible on the screen. He knew about HD Capital. I had told him 6 months ago. He was the only person in the world who knew the full truth. "Having second thoughts?" he asked. I closed the laptop gently. "No, I gave them 2 years. They used that time to tell me I should never have existed." I paused, feeling the weight of my own words. January 2nd is not revenge. It is just the end of pretending. Marcus nodded. He understood. He always did. I had carried this secret for 2 years. The weight of saving people who despised me. The silence of sacrifice without acknowledgement. Now that silence was about to break. And Harper Donovan, the girl who was never enough, was finally ready to let the truth speak. The day after Christmas arrived with a stillness I had never known. I woke in my apartment with Marcus beside me, morning light filtering through the curtains, and for a moment I simply lay there listening to the quiet. No obligations pulling at me, No family schedule I had to rearrange myself around. No mental preparation for another performance of the dutiful daughter. There was only silence. Heavy, unfamiliar, but mine. Marcus had made breakfast. Eggs, toast, fresh coffee. We ate together at the small kitchen table, conversation light and easy. He told me about a project at work. I told him about a book I wanted to read. Normal things, ordinary things, the kind of morning I had rarely allowed myself because there was always something more urgent. Someone who needed me to fix something. Someone who needed me to send money or smooth things over or absorb their disappointment without complaint. My phone sat on the counter, face down, silent. I had not turned it on since blocking my family the night before. It felt like leaving a door locked that I used to keep open out of obligation. Part of me wanted to check. The old instinct was strong, but I resisted. Whatever was happening on the other side of that silence, it was no longer my responsibility. Marcus glanced at the phone as he cleared our plates. "You will have to turn it on, eventually." I took a slow sip of coffee. Eventually is not today. He did not argue. He understood that I was not avoiding. I was choosing. There is a difference. Later that morning, with Marcus reading on the couch nearby, I finally picked up the phone. I turned it on with deliberate calm and watched the screen load. Then the notifications began. The phone vibrated continuously for nearly 2 minutes, message after message, call after call. The screen filled with names and numbers and demands. 67 missed calls. Over 100 text messages. 32 voicemails. 18 emails. The numbers were staggering. In 24 hours, my family had tried to reach me more times than they had in the previous year combined. I scrolled through the sources. My father, 23 calls. My mother, 14 calls. Brandon, 11 calls. The rest were numbers I did not recognize. Relatives, family friends, people who had been recruited to reach me because I had blocked the direct lines. I sampled a few of the text messages. My father's were short and sharp. "Call me now. This is not over. You will regret this." My mother's were longer, winding, designed to induce guilt. "Please, honey, let us talk. Your father is very upset. Think of the family." Brandon's messages started with accusation and ended with threat. "What did you do? You have destroyed everything." One text caught my attention. Sent from Brandon at 3:17 in the morning. "I know what you did. I know about HD Capital. This is not over." I smiled at the screen. He had finally figured it out. It only took him 2 years. I did not respond to any of them. I archived the messages and set the phone back on the counter. My hands were steady. My breathing was calm. The flood of their desperation did not touch me the way it once would have. Marcus looked up from his book. "How bad?" I told him the numbers. He let out a low whistle. Then he asked the only question that mattered. "How do you feel?" I considered it honestly. "Clear. I feel clear." I decided to listen to the voicemails. Not to torture myself. To document. If this escalated further, I might need evidence. I put in my earbuds and pressed play. My father's first message was barely contained rage. Recorded at 11:47 on Christmas Eve, less than an hour after I left. "You think you can just walk out? You think this is over? Call me back. Now." His second message came at 2:15 in the morning. His words slurred slightly. He had been drinking. "HD Capital. You thought we would not figure it out. You have been lying to us for 2 years. The third message was colder. Calculated. Recorded at 9:30 Christmas morning. My lawyers will be in touch. You cannot withdraw that investment. There are contracts. There are consequences. My mother's voicemail was a masterpiece of manipulation. She cried throughout. "I do not understand why you are doing this to us. After everything we have given you. Please, Harper, do not destroy this family." Brandon's message was pure venom, recorded late on Christmas night. "You think you are so smart. You think you have won something. I will make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." I listened to each one without flinching. I saved them to a secure folder. Evidence. Then I noticed something that confirmed everything I already knew. Not one voicemail contained an apology. Not one acknowledged what my father had said to me at the party. They were angry about the money. They were angry about the exposure. They were angry about the embarrassment. But not one of them was sorry for erasing me. I went to work that afternoon. The office was quiet. Skeleton staff between the holidays. But the normalcy felt grounding. At my desk, I was not the daughter who had been publicly disowned. I was Harper Donovan, senior financial analyst, someone competent, someone respected, someone who belonged. I reviewed client portfolios, answered emails, drafted a report I had been postponing. For a few hours, I existed outside the chaos of my family. It felt like breathing after being underwater. My desk phone rang at 2:15. Internal call. I answered without thinking. Harper Donovan, this is reception. There is a woman here asking for you. She says her name is Lily. Lily Donovan. I froze. My brother's wife. Here, at my office. I will be right down. The walk to the lobby felt longer than usual. I did not know what to expect. Lily and I had never been close. She had always seemed like an extension of Brandon, another member of the family who looked through me at gatherings. But when I saw her standing near the window, she looked different. No designer dress, no perfect makeup, just jeans and a sweater and a coat clutched in her hands like a lifeline. Dark circles under her eyes. She looked smaller than I remembered, and scared. Lily, I did not expect to see you here. I know. I am sorry for showing up like this. I did not know how else to reach you. You could have called. She shook her head, and something in her eyes made me go still. Brandon monitors my phone. That statement landed like a stone in water, ripples spreading outward. I had suspected Brandon was controlling, but hearing it confirmed shifted something in my understanding. Let us go somewhere we can talk. I led her to a small conference room and closed the door. We faced each other across a narrow table. Two women connected by a family that had damaged them both. I found your bag, Lily said. I was the one who opened it. She paused, swallowing hard. I am sorry. I should have just set it aside. But I saw the name HD Capital, and I had to know. Why? Because I have been watching this family lie for 3 years, and I needed to know if someone else saw it too. I studied her face, the trembling in her hands, the way she held herself like someone expecting to be struck. I recognized that posture. I had worn it myself for most of my life. Lily, why are you really here? She took a breath. The words came slowly at first, then faster, like water breaking through a dam. She told me she had married Brandon 3 years ago. At first he was charming, attentive, generous. Then the control started, slowly, gradually. He monitored her phone, her emails, her credit cards. He did not hit her. He hit walls. He threw things. He told her she was lucky he tolerated her. His family knew. They pretended they did not. I stayed because I thought it would get better, she said. I thought I could fix it. My family is in California. I have no one here. And I was ashamed. I did not want anyone to know I had made such a mistake. I listened without interrupting. I did not offer pity. I could see she did not want pity. She wanted to be heard. When your father said those words to you at the party, something broke in me. She met my eyes. I watched you walk out without looking back. And I thought she did it. She actually left. If you could do it, maybe I could too. I felt something shift between us. Not friendship exactly, recognition. We were both survivors of the same wreckage. I am not asking you to forgive them, Lily continued. I am not asking you to come back. I just wanted you to know that I see what they are. I have seen it for years, and I wanted to warn you. Warn me about what? Richard is planning something. Her voice dropped. He called his lawyer at midnight on Christmas. I heard him say your name like it was poison. He said something about making sure she cannot withdraw. I do not know exactly what it means, but I thought you should know. Thank you, I said, for telling me, for coming here. Her eyes glistened. "You are not alone anymore. And you do not have to go back to that house tonight." She looked at me like I had offered her water in a desert. No one had ever said that to her before. I could see it in her face. I gave her my personal email before she left, a safe way to communicate, away from Brandon's surveillance. She hugged me at the elevator, quick and fierce, then disappeared into the December afternoon. I returned to my desk and checked my work email. A new message had arrived while I was with Lily, from Morrison and Associates, attorneys at law. Subject line, cease and desist. HD Capital Investment withdrawal. Sent at 5:01 in the afternoon. They had been waiting. The email was formal, dense with legal language. It claimed my withdrawal constituted breach of fiduciary duty. It claimed irreparable harm to Donovan Properties. It demanded immediate halt to withdrawal proceedings. It threatened litigation if I proceeded. I read it twice. My jaw tightened, but my hand stayed steady. I recognized the tactic. Intimidation disguised as law. But I knew my contract was airtight. Catherine Walsh had made sure of that. The 30-day notice was properly given. There was no breach, no fiduciary duty, no legitimate claim. This letter was a bluff. I forwarded the email to Catherine with a single line. "They have made their move." Her response came within minutes. "This is exactly what I predicted. They will try to scare you. Let them. Fear only works on people who doubt themselves." I closed my laptop and looked out the window at the darkening Boston skyline. I did not doubt myself, not anymore. Richard Donovan had picked a fight with the wrong daughter, and in 7 days he would learn exactly how wrong. I woke on December 27th with a strange clarity, 2 days after Christmas. The cease and desist from my father's lawyers sat in my inbox like a declaration of war. I had spent the night thinking about my next move, and by morning I knew exactly what I needed to do. I was done playing defense. It was time to go on offense. I called Catherine Walsh at 8 in the morning. She answered on the second ring, her voice alert and sharp despite the early hour. "I was expecting your call. I saw the cease and desist. How soon can we meet?" I cleared my morning. "Come to my office at 10. There was something in her voice I had not expected. Excitement. "They have made a mistake, Harper, a big one, and I have been waiting for this." My pulse quickened. I had no idea what she meant, but I was about to find out. Catherine Walsh's office occupied a corner of a high-rise in Boston's financial district. 10th floor, harbor views, the kind of space that announced success without shouting it. She was waiting for me when I arrived. Mid-50s, silver-streaked hair, sharp eyes that missed nothing. Her desk was organized chaos, files stacked with precision, legal pads covered in neat handwriting, a woman who thrived on complexity. I had found Catherine through a colleague's recommendation 6 months earlier. Former prosecutor turned private practice. She specialized in financial crimes and family disputes. When I first told her my story, she had taken my case pro bono. "I hate bullies," she said simply, "and your family sounds like a collection of them." She gestured for me to sit across from her, not behind her desk. Equal seating, a deliberate choice. The cease and desist letter lay on the table between us. Catherine picked it up and waved it dismissively. "This is garbage, legal theater. They have no standing." She broke it down for me piece by piece. HD Capital's contract was ironclad. The 30-day notice had been properly executed. Breach of fiduciary duty did not apply because I was an investor, not a fiduciary. My father's lawyers were bluffing, hoping I would blink, hoping I was still the compliant daughter who backed down at the first sign of conflict. "We do not respond to this letter," Catherine said. "We do not engage with their narrative. Instead, we go on offense." "What do you mean?" She leaned forward, eyes sharp with something that looked like anticipation. She opened a drawer and pulled out a thick manila folder. The tab read, "Eleanor Whitmore Donovan. Testamentary Trust." I stopped breathing. Eleanor Whitmore. Donovan, my grandmother's full name. Before we talk about HD Capital, Catherine said, we need to talk about your inheritance. The folder felt heavy in my hands when she slid it across the desk. I opened it slowly, not sure what I was about to find. The first document was dense with legal language, but the key details were clear. Eleanor Whitmore, Donovan Living Trust. Dated March 2014. Trust amount $800,000. Beneficiary Harper Elizabeth Donovan. Trustee Richard Allen Donovan. Distribution date upon beneficiary's 21st birthday. I did the math in my head. My grandmother created this trust in 2014. She died in 2015. I turned 21 in 2017. That was 7 years ago. The trust should have been distributed 7 years ago. It never was. I do not understand. My voice came out barely above a whisper. My father said there was no inheritance. He said grandmother's estate went to medical bills and taxes. He said there was nothing left. Catherine's expression hardened. He lied. The trust was separate from the estate. As trustee, he had a legal obligation to inform you and distribute the funds on your 21st birthday. He did neither. She let that sink in before continuing. Harper, this is fraud. This is theft. This is potentially criminal. I stared at the number on the document. $800,000. With 7 years of interest, Catherine explained, the current value was approximately $920,000. I thought about my student loans. $42,000 I had paid off by myself, pinching pennies, skipping vacations, saying no to everything that was not essential. I thought about the loan I took to save my father's company. $1.5 million I would spend a decade repaying. I thought about every Christmas I had struggled to afford gifts for a family that wished I had never existed, and all along my father had been sitting on nearly $1 million that belonged to me. Catherine pulled more documents from the folder. She explained how she had found the trust. When I first mentioned my grandmother Eleanor in our initial meeting, Catherine had done routine due diligence. She discovered the trust in probate records. My father had filed it with the court, but never executed the distribution. For 7 years, he had signed annual trustee reports claiming pending distribution. For 7 years, he lied to the court. There was more. Eleanor had included a letter with the trust documents. Catherine handed it to me carefully, like she understood what it would mean. I recognized the handwriting instantly. The same loops and curves I remembered from birthday cards when I was a child. From notes tucked into my suitcase when I left for college. From the last letter she ever sent me, 2 weeks before she died. My dearest Harper, my phoenix. If you are reading this, you have found someone worthy of your heart. You have survived whatever storms came. You have built a life of your own. Wear this bracelet as my blessing. Know that I am with you. You were never too much. You were always exactly enough. Rise, my darling. Rise and be free. All my love forever. Grandma Eleanor. The letter blurred as tears filled my eyes. First tears since Christmas. Not tears of sadness. Tears of being seen. Even from beyond the grave, my grandmother was still protecting me, still believing in me, still calling me her phoenix. The letter ended with a single line that made my heart stop. If this trust is not distributed on your 21st birthday, something has gone wrong. Find a lawyer you trust. And know that everything I feared about your father was true. She knew. Eleanor knew what my father was. She had tried to protect me even then. Catherine gave me a moment to compose myself before explaining our options. We had 2 paths forward. Criminal complaint for breach of fiduciary duty and fraud, or civil lawsuit to recover the trust plus damages, or both. The stakes for my father were severe. Criminal charges could mean prosecution. A civil judgment could force liquidation of assets. Combined with the HD Capital withdrawal, Donovan Properties could not survive. His reputation would be destroyed. "What do you want to do?" Catherine asked. I thought about the question carefully. I thought about revenge versus justice, about what Eleanor would have wanted. I want what is mine. The trust, with interest. I want the withdrawal from HD Capital to proceed as scheduled, and I want him to know that I know. That is punishment enough. Catherine nodded. Then let us begin. She started drafting the demand letter while I watched. Addressed to Richard Allen Donovan. Subject line: formal demand. Breach of fiduciary duty, fraudulent concealment, and misappropriation of trust assets. I felt no guilt, only clarity. I returned to work that afternoon. Wellington Partners was quiet between the holidays, but something felt different the moment I walked in. Colleagues glanced at me, then looked away. Conversations stopped when I passed. The receptionist's smile seemed strained. My instincts flared. I knew this feeling. Something had happened. My boss appeared at my desk within the hour. David Patterson. Distinguished, gray-haired, the kind of man who had seen everything in 40 years of finance. He asked if he could see me in his office. His tone was careful, neutral, the tone people use for difficult conversations. His office door closed behind me. He did not sit behind his desk. He sat beside me. "Harper, I need to ask you something directly. Have you had a mental health crisis recently?" The question hit like cold water. Patterson explained. Someone had called the firm's human resources department. Anonymous tip. The caller claimed I was unstable and potentially dangerous. They suggested the firm verify my mental fitness. The call came from a Boston area code. I kept my voice steady. "Mr. Patterson, I have never had a mental health crisis. My family is attempting to discredit me because of a financial dispute. I have documentation of their harassment if you need it." Patterson studied my face for a long moment. His expression was unreadable. Then he exhaled and leaned back. "I believe you. I have seen this before, families who weaponize institutions against their own." He paused and his voice softened. "My sister went through something similar. She did not survive it." The words hung in the air between us. "You will. I will make sure of it." He told me what he had done. The anonymous call had already been flagged as suspicious. HR had been instructed to document but not investigate. Wellington Partners did not act on anonymous character assassinations. They valued evidence, not gossip. Then he told me something I did not expect. I was being considered for partner. The decision would come in January. He was telling me because he wanted me to know that I had earned it, that I should not let anyone make me think otherwise. Partner, the position I had worked toward for 6 years, the validation I had never received from my family, coming from colleagues who judged me by my work, not my bloodline. "Document everything your family is doing," Patterson said. "Keep records. If they escalate, we will support you legally if needed. This firm protects its own." I walked back to my desk feeling something I had not felt in years. Belonging. Not because I had earned it through sacrifice or silence, because I had built something real, a career, a reputation, a life that stood on its own merit. My father could spread all the lies he wanted. He could call every institution in Boston, but he could not erase what I had built. And in 5 days, when January 2nd arrived, he would learn that the daughter he dismissed had been the only thing standing between him and ruin. The countdown had begun. December 29th arrived with a strange stillness. 4 days until January 2nd. Catherine's demand letter about my grandmother's trust had been sent. The cease and desist from my father's lawyers sat unanswered. The silence from Beacon Hill felt strategic. My father was planning something. I knew him well enough to recognize the pattern. When Richard Donovan went quiet, it meant he was gathering ammunition. I spent the weekend documenting everything. Every voicemail saved to a secure folder. Every text message screenshotted. The cease and desist. The anonymous call to my workplace. Every piece of evidence that showed a family trying to destroy a daughter who had dared to walk away. My laptop held a folder labeled Evidence that grew thicker by the hour. This was what preparation looked like. Not the frantic scrambling of someone afraid, but the methodical work of someone ready. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number, not blocked, a new contact I had saved just days ago. Lily. Her message was short. Check your email. I found something. Be careful. My stomach tightened. Whatever Lily had found, it was not good news. I opened my laptop and navigated to the private email account I had given her. A message waited in my inbox. Subject line screenshots. Please delete after reading. The email contained 3 image attachments and a brief note. I have access to Brandon's personal laptop. He does not know. What I found confirms everything. I clicked on the first screenshot. A text conversation between Brandon and someone saved only as V. Brandon's messages were desperate, pleading. I need another 100,000. I can get it back this time. The response was cold. You are already in for 350. No more credit until you pay. Brandon again. Give me until January. I will have access to new funds. $350,000. My brother owed $350,000 to people who clearly did not accept excuses. The second screenshot made my blood run cold. An email draft from Brandon's sent folder. The recipient was an address I did not recognize, but the subject line told me everything. Rush order, signature samples attached. The body of the email was brief. Need authorization forms for financial transfer. Signature must match attached samples exactly. Payment upon delivery. Below the text were 3 images. My signature, taken from old family documents, birthday cards, tax forms, things Brandon should never have had access to. He was planning to forge my signature. The third screenshot was a text conversation between Brandon and my father. Richard's message was urgent. The lawyer sent a demand letter. She knows about the trust. Brandon's response. How much? Richard. All of it. We need to move before January 2nd. Brandon, I have a plan. Trust me. Richard. Your plans are what got us here. Brandon. This one will work. I just need her signature. I read that last line 3 times. I just need her signature. My father knew. He knew Brandon was planning to forge my signature to access HD Capital funds before the withdrawal could complete, and he was letting it happen. Marcus appeared in the kitchen doorway, saw my face, and crossed the room to stand beside me. He read the screenshots over my shoulder. His jaw tightened with each image. The scope of what I was seeing settled into my chest like ice. Brandon's gambling had not stopped after I bailed out the company 2 years ago. It had continued, escalated. He now owed $350,000 to people who were clearly dangerous. His plan was to forge my signature on transfer documents and redirect HD Capital funds before I could withdraw them. If he succeeded, I would be left with nothing. And I would be blamed for the company's collapse. My father was not just aware of this plan, he was waiting to see if it worked. Plausible deniability. Let Brandon take the risk. If it succeeded, the family would be saved. If it failed, Brandon would take the fall. Either way, Richard Donovan's hands would stay clean. I looked at the man beside me. Steady, calm, ready to fight alongside me. Then I looked at the screenshots. My father and brother conspiring to destroy me. The contrast was so sharp it almost made me laugh. I had spent my whole life trying to earn the love of people who would forge my signature without hesitation, and I had found real loyalty in someone who shared no blood with me at all. We need to call Catherine, Marcus said. Now. I dialed her number. She answered despite it being Sunday afternoon. I forwarded the screenshots while she was still on the line. There was a long pause as she reviewed them. Then a low whistle. This is attempted fraud, she said. Conspiracy to commit forgery. Brandon is soliciting criminal services. That is a felony. And your father's texts show foreknowledge. He is an accessory. Harper, this changes everything. She outlined our options. Report to law enforcement immediately. Send a formal warning and give them a chance to cease. Or wait, gather more evidence and build a stronger case. Catherine recommended the second option with documentation ready for the first. I did not want to send my brother to prison. Despite everything, I did not want that. I wanted him to stop. I wanted them all to understand that I was not defenseless. Not anymore. Send the warning, I told Catherine. But keep the evidence ready. If they do not stop, we go to the authorities. Catherine paused before hanging up. I have to ask, why warn them? You have enough to put Brandon in handcuffs tonight. Because I want them to choose. They can stop now or they can keep going and face consequences. I want to know which kind of people they really are. Her voice softened. I think you already know. She was right. I did. But some part of me still hoped I was wrong. The warning letter went out on Monday morning. December 30th. Addressed to Brandon Donovan. It stated that any attempt to forge my signature or access my accounts would result in immediate criminal prosecution. It referenced credible evidence of conspiracy without revealing Lily as the source. It warned that all HD Capital documents now required biometric verification. Any transfer would need my in-person authorization. The forgery plan was neutralized before it could execute. Copies went to my father and his lawyers. Lily texted me that afternoon with an update. Brandon is losing his mind. Threw his laptop against the wall. Richard locked himself in his study. Has not come out in hours. Your mother is on her third glass of wine. It is not even noon. They are scared. Really scared. I read her message and felt something unexpected. Nothing. No satisfaction, no guilt, no triumph. Just a hollow recognition that the people who raised me were strangers. They had always been strangers. I had just been too busy trying to earn their love to notice. That evening, Marcus suggested we go up to the rooftop. Our private escape. The top of our apartment building, accessible through a maintenance door that never locked properly. We had discovered it when we first moved in together and made it ours. Folding chairs, blankets, a thermos of hot cocoa. The city lights of Boston spread below us like scattered diamonds. We sat in silence at first, watching the sky. The air was cold, but clear. Stars visible despite the light pollution, a rare gift in the city. 3 days left, Marcus said. I know. Are you ready? I have been ready for 2 years. I just did not know it. He did not try to fix anything. He did not offer advice or solutions. He simply sat beside me, present and solid. Whatever happens on January 2nd, I am here. Whatever comes after, I am here. I leaned into him and felt his warmth against the cold. I thought about what family meant. Not blood, not obligation, not performance, but choice, presence, staying when it would be easier to leave. His hand found mine in the darkness. His thumb traced circles on my palm. He seemed about to say something, then stopped. What is it? I asked. Never mind. It can wait. Tell me. Ask me again after January 2nd. I studied his face in the dim light. There was something there. Something he was holding back. Something that looked like hope and fear and joy all tangled together. I did not press. I trusted him. Whatever he was waiting to say, it would come when the time was right. For now, this was enough. The cold air, the city lights, the man beside me who had never once asked me to be less than I was. Later that night, we made dinner together. Simple pasta, garlic bread. We watched an old movie neither of us paid attention to. We fell asleep on the couch, tangled together, the stress of the day finally releasing its grip. Before sleep took me, I thought about the countdown. 3 days until January 2nd. 3 days until the withdrawal completed. 3 days until my family faced the consequences of their own choices. I had done everything I could. I had warned them. I had protected myself. I had prepared for battle. Now I waited. And waiting, I had learned, is its own kind of strength. The last thing I saw before my eyes closed was the calendar on the wall, January 2nd circled in red, Marcus's handwriting, not mine. He had marked it weeks ago, before Christmas, before any of this. At the time I thought it was about the withdrawal. Now I wondered if it meant something else entirely. But that was a question for another day. Tonight I would rest. Tomorrow the final battle would begin. New Year's Eve arrived with the weight of an ending and the promise of something new. December 31st, 2024. The last day of the year, 2 days until January 2nd. I woke with unusual clarity, no anxiety, no dread, just focus. Today I would confirm the final execution of the withdrawal. The paperwork was ready. The decision was made. There was nothing left to do but press the button. I stood at the window watching Boston wake up beneath a pale winter sky. People rushed along the sidewalks below, carrying champagne bottles and party supplies, preparing for celebrations that had nothing to do with me. Everyone was getting ready for new beginnings. I was preparing for an ending, not a sad ending, a necessary one. My phone buzzed with a calendar reminder I had set weeks ago. HD Capital, final confirmation. Below it, a second reminder I did not remember setting. Trust the process. Monsieur Marcus. He had been in my phone, leaving breadcrumbs of encouragement. I smiled, despite everything. In 48 hours, everything would change. But today, I had work to do. I called Catherine Walsh and connected to the HD Capital Financial Management Portal. The interface was clean and clinical, numbers and dates and legal language. Nothing about it suggested the magnitude of what I was about to do. Catherine's voice came through the speaker, steady and clear. Once you confirm today, the process becomes irreversible. The funds will transfer to your personal account on January 2nd. Donovan Properties will receive notification within the hour. And there is nothing they can do to stop it. Nothing legal. The contract is clear. The notice period is satisfied. I hovered my cursor over the button. Confirm final execution. I thought about the 53 employees who would lose their jobs when the company collapsed, but I had done my research. Most of the good ones had already been recruited by competitors. The talent would land on their feet. The company's death was not their fault, and it would not be their ruin. I clicked. The screen refreshed. Withdrawal confirmed. Execution date: January 2nd, 2025. Amount $2,300,000. It was done. Catherine's voice softened. How do you feel? I considered the question. I had expected relief or triumph or guilt. Instead, I felt something simpler. Completion. Like finishing a book I had been reading for far too long. I feel ready. Ready for whatever comes next. Across Boston, in a mansion in Beacon Hill, a notification was about to land like a bomb. I learned the details of what happened next through Lily's texts and later through news reports. My father was in his study that morning, nursing a whiskey despite the early hour. His laptop pinged with an email notification. From HD Capital Financial Services. Subject withdrawal confirmation. Execution confirmed. He opened it with trembling hands. Read it once, twice, 3 times. The words did not change. Withdrawal of $2,300,000 confirmed for January 2nd, 2025. He hurled his whiskey glass against the wall. Amber liquid and shattered crystal sprayed across the carpet. The panic that followed was almost comical in its desperation. He called his lawyer. No answer. Holiday hours. He called the bank. Skeleton staff. No one with authority to help. He called Brandon. Voicemail. Every door he tried was closed. My mother found him 20 minutes later, drawn by the sound of breaking glass. He showed her the email. Her hand flew to her mouth. Can we stop it? Can we do something? His answer was hollow. It is too late. She has won. He made one final call that morning. To the chairman of Donovan Properties Board of Directors. He requested an emergency meeting. Today. Now. The chairman protested. Richard, it is New Year's Eve. My father's response silenced him. If we do not meet today, there will not be a company to discuss tomorrow. The board meeting happened at 3 in the afternoon. 5 members on video call, faces arranged in boxes on a screen. My father sat alone at the head of an empty conference room. Brandon was absent. No one could reach him. The board members were annoyed at the holiday interruption, but their irritation turned to shock as my father began to speak. Our primary silent investor is pulling out, $2,300,000. A board member interrupted. Silent investor. You told us that was institutional money. I simplified the situation. Who is HD Capital? Silence. A long, terrible silence. HD Capital is my daughter, Harper. The video call went still. 5 faces frozen in disbelief. Your daughter invested $2,300,000 in this company. Yes. 2 years ago. When we were in trouble. What kind of trouble? My father had no choice but to tell them everything. The company had been insolvent in early 2023. Brandon's business development expenses were actually gambling losses. My investment had saved them from bankruptcy. No one on the board had known. My father had concealed it all. The reactions came fast and furious. You lied to us for 2 years. We have been operating on borrowed time. Why is she pulling out now? My father's answer was barely audible. Because I told her she should never have existed. The video call went silent. 5 faces stared at him through their screens, not with anger, with something worse, disgust. One board member unmuted slowly. Theodore Ashford, a man I barely remembered from childhood gatherings. His voice was cold. Richard, I have known your family for 40 years. I was at your daughter's christening, and you said that to her. My father could not meet his eyes. I was upset. She was being difficult. Theodore cut him off. She saved your company, and you told her she should not exist. He shook his head slowly. I think this meeting is over. The call ended, the board scattered, and Richard Donovan sat alone in an empty conference room, watching his empire crumble. My phone rang late that afternoon. Unknown Boston number. I almost ignored it. Something made me answer. Harper, this is Theodore Ashford. I do not know if you remember me. I paused. Theodore Ashford, my father's oldest friend, board member. I had met him at family events as a child. He always seemed kinder than the others. I was just on a call with your father. I know what happened. I know about HD Capital. I know what you did. And I know what he said to you. His voice wavered. I am calling to apologize. Not for him. He does not deserve that. For myself. I should have seen what that family was doing to you. I should have spoken up. Then he told me something that made my heart stop. Your grandmother Eleanor was my cousin. Did you know that? No, I did not. She talked about you constantly, called you her phoenix. She told me once, near the end, that she worried about you, that she had made arrangements. I asked your father about it after she passed. He said there was nothing. I believed him. I should not have. His voice cracked. I know about the trust now. Catherine Walsh contacted me as part of her investigation. Eleanor would be so proud of you, Harper. So proud. And she would want you to know. You were always the best of them. Happy New Year, Harper. I hope it is the beginning of everything you deserve. The line went quiet. I stood in my kitchen holding the phone, tears streaming down my face. A stranger's voice carrying my grandmother's love across the years. That evening, Marcus and I watched the countdown alone. Champagne in hand, city lights glittering through the window, fireworks beginning to burst over the harbor in the distance. He raised his glass. To endings that lead to beginnings. I raised mine, to truths that set us free. We clinked glasses as the city counted down. 10, 9, 8. Marcus pulled me close. 3, 2, 1. The new year arrived. 2025. We kissed as fireworks exploded across the Boston skyline. Something released in my chest. The old year was gone. The old Harper was gone. Tomorrow was not just a new day, it was a new life. Marcus held me for a long moment after the kiss. Then he whispered against my hair, 1 more day. I knew what he meant. January 2nd. The withdrawal. The end of my family's hold on my finances, my peace, my life. But something in his voice suggested he meant something else too, something he had been waiting to say. 1 more day, I agreed. We went to bed just after midnight. I was drifting toward sleep when my phone shattered the silence. 2 a.m. Unknown number. Is this Harper Donovan? Yes. This is Massachusetts General Hospital. Your father has been admitted. I sat up, suddenly awake. The nurse explained. Richard collapsed at home around midnight. Chest pains, shortness of breath. My mother called 911. He was stable but being monitored. Your mother asked us to contact you. She is requesting you come. Marcus was awake now, watching me in the darkness. What is it? My father is in the hospital. Chest pains. Are you going? The question hung in the air. I thought about it, really thought. Was this real? Or was this another performance? My father had never had heart problems. The timing was too convenient. One day before the withdrawal, I knew him. I knew his tactics. No, I am not going. Marcus did not question it. If it is real, he has Judith and Brandon. If it is manipulation, I am not rewarding it. Either way, my answer is the same. I lay back down and stared at the ceiling. If my father was truly ill, I would carry that guilt. But I had carried guilt for 28 years. Guilt for existing, for wanting, for needing, for being. I was done carrying what did not belong to me. In less than 24 hours, the withdrawal would complete. In less than 24 hours, I would be free. If Richard Donovan wanted to perform one last manipulation, he would do it without an audience. Harper Donovan was no longer available for the family drama. Not today, not ever again. January 2nd arrived like any other morning. Gray winter light, snow on the ground, the world outside my window unchanged. But inside my apartment, everything was different. I woke beside Marcus, checked my phone, and waited. At 9:15, the notification came. Email from HD Capital Financial Services. Subject: withdrawal complete. Funds transferred. I opened it slowly, reading every word. Transfer of $2,300,000 to designated account confirmed. I expected to feel something dramatic. Relief, triumph, maybe guilt. Instead, I felt something quieter. Completion. Like stepping off a treadmill I did not know I had been running on. 2 years of carrying their secret. 2 years of watching them take credit for my sacrifice. It was over. The money was mine again, and they would finally face what they created. I forwarded the confirmation to Catherine Walsh with a single line. It is done. Her response came within minutes. Now we wait. Truth has its own gravity. I did not know yet how right she would be. Within 72 hours, the Donovan family would be in free fall, and everyone in Boston would be watching. The crisis at Donovan Properties began within hours. I learned the details later through Lily's updates and news reports. The company's operating account dropped by $2.3 million. Automatic payments started bouncing, vendors, contractors, payroll pending. The CFO called my father in a panic, but my father was still in the hospital. Observation for his heart episode. Or so he claimed. Brandon arrived at the office trying to take charge. He had no idea what he was doing. Staff members exchanged worried glances as he barked orders that contradicted each other. Rumors spread through the building like fire. By noon, the first employee had already accepted a job offer elsewhere. By 3 p.m, 7 more had interviews scheduled. The board reacted with the speed of rats fleeing a sinking ship. Theodore Ashford had already submitted his resignation letter. 2 other members requested indefinite leave of absence. Emergency meetings were scheduled and canceled. No one wanted to be associated with the collapse. The company I had saved once was dying. And this time, I was not coming back. News spread through Boston's business community with ruthless efficiency. By January 3rd, the Whisper Network was fully operational. The Boston Globe ran a piece in the business section. Headline: Donovan Properties faces investor exodus. The article was carefully worded. Facts only, no speculation, but the implications were clear. Sources confirm major silent investor withdrew significant capital. Company leadership declined to comment. What the article did not say, the whispers filled in. Business owners talked at breakfast meetings. Lawyers gossiped at the courthouse. Bankers exchanged knowing glances. The story spread. Richard Donovan's daughter pulled her money out. She did it after he publicly humiliated her at Christmas. By evening, everyone who mattered in Boston knew the truth. The social consequences arrived swiftly. My father's golf club temporarily suspended his membership pending review. The country club sent a formal letter. Dues under evaluation. Invitations to New Year's gatherings went unanswered. Old friends became suddenly unavailable. My mother's world crumbled fastest of all. Her book club met without telling her. Her church group leader suggested she take some time away. The pastor who had praised my father's generosity for years now avoided her calls. The social structure Judith Donovan had spent 30 years building collapsed in 72 hours. The truth about my father's hospital visit emerged on January 3rd. Lily texted me that afternoon. It was a panic attack. He is fine, but he is telling everyone you almost gave him a heart attack. I was not surprised. Of course he had exaggerated. Of course he had made himself the victim. It was the pattern of a lifetime. The medical reality was simple. Richard Donovan had been discharged after 2 nights of observation. Diagnosis: panic attack, not heart attack, no cardiac damage, no ongoing condition. Stress-related episode. The exact words on his discharge papers. But he had milked the hospitalization for every drop of sympathy he could extract. He told board members he was fighting for his life. He implied my actions had nearly killed him. Now the truth was out. He had never been in danger. The backlash was immediate. Board members who had sent sympathy cards felt foolish. Business associates who had given him grace felt manipulated. Even my mother seemed embarrassed. She had genuinely believed it was serious. "People are starting to not believe him," Lily reported. Even your mother looked surprised when the doctor explained. My father had tried to weaponize illness, and it had backfired. The man who once commanded rooms now inspired eye rolls. Brandon's gambling exploded into public view on January 4th. Someone leaked. Lily suspected his creditors. An anonymous tip reached the Boston Globe business desk. Documents showing wire transfers from Donovan Properties to offshore accounts, amounts matching gambling operations known to financial investigators. Brandon's name attached to every transfer. The article was devastating. Headline: Donovan Properties COO linked to gambling transactions. Detailed, documented, damning. Brandon was named directly. My father was named as the CEO who oversaw the transactions. Brandon denied everything publicly. Malicious lies, he declared. He threatened to sue the newspaper. His lawyers advised him to stay quiet. He did not stay quiet. He made everything worse. The creditors were not patient people. With the company collapsing, their investment was at risk. They wanted their $350,000. They began making calls. To Brandon, to my father, to the company directly. The Massachusetts Attorney General's office opened a preliminary inquiry. Corporate fund misappropriation was a serious allegation. Brandon could face criminal charges. My father, as CEO, could be implicated for negligent oversight. Lily texted me that night. "Brandon has not come home. His car is gone. I think he is running." I read her message twice. I thought about the brother who broke my things as a child, who took credit for my work as an adult, who tried to forge my signature just days ago. I should have felt something: satisfaction, vindication, even pity. Instead, I felt only exhaustion. I was tired of Brandon, tired of the drama, tired of caring about people who had never cared about me. "Stay safe," I texted Lily back. "Let me know if you need anything." That was all I had left to give. My mother called on January 5th. I saw her name on my phone and almost let it ring. But something made me answer. Curiosity, perhaps. Or the need for closure. She was sobbing, barely coherent. "Harper, please, you have to help us. Everything is falling apart. Your father is destroyed. Brandon is missing. The company." She could not finish the sentence. I listened without interrupting. I let her cry, let her beg, let her plead. I did not offer comfort. I did not apologize. Then her tone shifted, grief becoming anger. "How could you do this to us? After everything we gave you, everything we sacrificed, you are destroying your own family. I let the silence stretch before I responded. My voice was calm, clear, final. I saved you once, 2 years ago. You did not even know. I gave you time. You used that time to hurt me more. I am not destroying this family. I am just not holding it up anymore. The weight was always yours to carry. I am just done carrying it for you. You were always ungrateful, she started. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. First time I had ever ended a call with my mother. My hands were steady. I waited for the guilt to arrive. The familiar wave that always followed any act of self-preservation with my family. It did not come. What came instead was relief. I had said what needed to be said. I had ended the conversation on my own terms. For the first time in my life, I did not feel the need to call back and apologize for having boundaries. That same morning, I had visited Catherine Walsh's office. She filed a formal complaint with the Massachusetts Probate Court. Subject breach of fiduciary duty by Trustee Richard Donovan. Eleanor Whitmore, Donovan Trust. Fraudulent concealment of assets, demand for full accounting and immediate distribution. The complaint would trigger an automatic investigation. My father would be required to produce all trust documents. His annual trustee reports would be examined. Any discrepancies would be referred to the district attorney's office. Based on what we have, Catherine said, this is textbook financial elder abuse. He took advantage of his position as trustee to steal from his own daughter. The fact that Eleanor specifically warned you in her letter makes it worse. He knew what he was doing, and he did it anyway. She walked me to the elevator after the filing. I have handled a lot of family disputes, she said. Inheritance fights, business feuds, sibling rivalries. But I have never seen someone handle it the way you have. No rage, no revenge. Just truth. I considered her words. I do not need revenge. I just needed them to stop, and I needed to stop pretending. The elevator doors opened. Catherine smiled. Truth has its own gravity, Harper. Once it starts moving, it does not stop. I stepped inside and pressed the button for the lobby. She was right. The truth was moving now, and the Donovan family was finally feeling its weight. The silence after the storm felt different than any silence I had known before. January 6th, 2025. 4 days since the withdrawal. I woke in my apartment with Marcus beside me and for a moment simply lay there listening to the quiet. No family obligations pressing on my mind. No messages I was afraid to read. No knot of dread in my stomach. Just peace. Real peace. The kind that belongs to you because you finally stopped giving it away. Marcus had already left for work. He kissed my forehead before leaving, a note on the pillow. Proud of you, always. I held the note for a long moment before getting up. Coffee by the window, watching Boston wake up. The simple rituals of a life that was finally mine. I thought about what came next, not in terms of my family. They were no longer my concern, but in terms of myself. Who was I now that I was not managing their chaos? The question felt liberating rather than frightening. For the first time in 28 years, the answer was mine to write. My phone buzzed on the counter. Not a family member. I had blocked them all. But the notification was from my email, and the sender's name made me pause. Brandon Donovan. He had found a way around the block. A new email address. Whatever he had to say, I knew it would not be an apology. Not a real one. The email was exactly what I expected. Subject line. We need to talk. The tone aggressive, defensive, desperate. I do not know what you think you have accomplished. You have destroyed everything Dad built. The company is finished. People are losing their jobs. Are you happy now? I hope you can live with what you have done. You were always jealous of me. This proves it. Then the tone shifted. Halfway through the message, desperation replaced accusation. Look, maybe we can work something out. I am in trouble. Real trouble. The people I owe money to are not patient. If you could just loan me something to get them off my back. We are still family, Harper. That has to mean something. I read it twice. The audacity was almost impressive. He insulted me, blamed me, then asked for money. in the same email. I noticed the timestamp, 3:47 in the morning. He had written it in the middle of the night. Probably drunk, probably terrified. The gambling creditors were not the kind of people who sent polite reminders. For a moment I felt something like pity. Then I remembered the forged signature attempt, the years of mockery, the Christmas party smirk. The pity faded. I archived the email without responding and made more coffee. Lily and I met for coffee 2 days later. A quiet cafe in Back Bay. First time we had seen each other in person since she came to my office. She looked different, lighter somehow. Still scared, but also relieved. Like someone who had finally set down a weight she had been carrying alone. "I filed for divorce yesterday," she said, cited emotional abuse in the documentation. "My lawyer advised me to file while Brandon is distracted. She had been staying with a friend while things settled. She could not go back to that house, not after everything. I did not expect to befriend my brother's wife, but trauma creates strange bonds. We had both survived the Donovan family. That shared survival mattered." "I never thanked you properly," Lily said, "for answering when I called. You did not have to listen. You did not have to help. You helped me first. The screenshots, the warnings." She smiled. "I guess we saved each other." She told me her plans. Moving back to California where her family lived, starting over somewhere the Donovan name meant nothing. "That sounds healthy," I said. "It sounds terrifying." But good terrifying. Before we parted, she said something that stayed with me. "You know, I used to think you were cold, the way they talked about you, selfish, ungrateful, difficult." She paused. "Now I realize they described you that way because you had boundaries, and boundaries terrified them." I thought about that for a long time after she left. Boundaries terrified them. Maybe that was the truest thing anyone had ever said about the Donovan family. My mother's letter arrived on January 10th, physical mail, thick envelope, her familiar looping handwriting on the front. I recognized it instantly and felt my chest tighten. Not with fear, with annoyance. They had chosen the one form of communication that demanded time and emotional labor. I left the envelope on the counter for 2 days. On the third evening, I sat down and opened it. 7 pages. Handwritten. My mother's familiar voice winding through every paragraph. Emotional, exhausting, full of explanations that explained nothing. She missed me. She worried about me. Christmas was stressful and things got out of hand. My father did not mean what he said. He was overwhelmed and worried and misunderstood. The family was struggling and needed to come together. I should think about what really matters. We are your parents. We made sacrifices. We deserve understanding. 7 pages. Not once did she acknowledge what my father actually said. Not once did she recognize my years of financial support. Not once did she mention the trust fund theft. Not once did she take accountability for enabling Brandon. Not once did she say, "I am sorry for how we treated you." This was not an apology. It was a recruitment letter. She wanted me back in my role, the fixer, the buffer, the scapegoat. She wanted the family to come together so I could hold it together. Nothing had changed. Nothing ever would. I drafted 3 responses, each one explaining, defending, justifying. I deleted all of them. Instead, I chose silence. The letter went into a drawer, unanswered. My mother had written 7 pages without once asking how I was doing. 7 pages about the family's suffering, my father's stress, Brandon's troubles, but not a single question about my life, my feelings, my well-being. That told me everything I needed to know. I was not a daughter to them. I was a function, and functions did not need to be asked how they were. My father's email arrived on January 12th, sent through his lawyer's address. His attorney had advised him not to contact me directly, so he wrote through official channels, still trying to control the narrative even now. His message was brief, cold, entitled. "I hope you are satisfied with what you have done. The company I built from nothing is being sold for parts. The family name I spent 40 years protecting is destroyed. I do not know what I did to deserve a daughter like you. After everything I provided, the education, the opportunities, the support, you repay me with betrayal. I expect better from you. I always have. No apology, not a word of regret, not a hint of responsibility, just blame, entitlement, victimhood. He still believed he was owed something. I expect better from you. The sentence echoed in my mind. My whole life I had twisted myself into shapes trying to meet his expectations. And every time I succeeded, he moved the goalposts. Now I finally understood. His expectations were not a standard to meet. They were a weapon to control. I could never have been enough for him. Because enough was never the goal. Obedience was. I forwarded the email to Catherine, for the file. Then I archived it and closed my laptop. I felt nothing, not anger, not sadness, not even disappointment. I had expected nothing, and he had delivered exactly that. I visited my grandmother's grave on January 13th. Mount Auburn Cemetery in Cambridge. First time in years. I drove alone. I needed this moment to myself. The cemetery was quiet. Winter bare trees. Cold air that made my breath visible. I knew the path by heart, even after all this time. Eleanor Whitmore Donovan, beloved mother, grandmother, friend. She saw beauty where others saw none. I knelt in the cold grass and cleared snow from the headstone with my bare hands. I placed a small bouquet of white roses against the stone. Her favorites. I finally understand what you tried to tell me, I whispered. You saw what they were. You tried to protect me. I am sorry it took me so long to see it too. The trust, the letter, the warning. I have it all now. I am going to be okay, Grandma. I promise. I touched the locket at my throat. The one she gave me when I was 10 years old. This was my mother's. Now it is yours. It had never felt more meaningful than it did in that moment. As I stood to leave, a cardinal landed on a nearby branch. It watched me for a moment, head tilted, then sang 3 clear notes before flying away. Eleanor had loved cardinals. She used to say they carried messages from those who had passed on. I did not believe in signs, but standing there in the cold, watching the red bird disappear into the gray sky, I let myself believe, just for a moment, that my grandmother was still watching, still proud, still there. Marcus proposed on January 15th. He had made dinner, candles, soft music, my favorite meal. I noticed the extra effort the moment I walked in. The apartment felt different, charged with something. After dinner he led me to the window. City lights spread below, snow falling gently. He took my hands and faced me. I have been waiting for the right moment. I kept saying after this and after that. But I realized there is never a perfect moment. There is just this one. Harper, you are the strongest person I know. Not because nothing hurts you. Because everything did, and you chose to heal anyway. I want to spend my life with someone who chooses. Not out of fear, but out of love. Will you marry me? I did not hesitate. Yes. The word came out clear and strong, no doubt hiding behind it. He slipped the ring onto my finger. Simple, elegant, perfect, not ostentatious. He knew me. Something shifted inside my chest, not the completion of something missing. I had never needed a ring or a man to make me whole, but the beginning of something chosen, a family I was building, not born into, a love I had earned, not begged for. I kissed him as the snow fell outside, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be seen, fully, completely, without conditions. This was what I had been searching for, not revenge, not vindication, just this. To be loved by someone who never asked me to be less than I was. And as we stood there in the candlelight, Harper Donovan, the girl who should never have existed, finally started to believe that she deserved to. January 16th began like any other workday. I arrived at Wellington Partners early, the way I always did, but something felt different the moment I walked through the doors. Colleagues glanced at me as I passed, not with suspicion, with something like anticipation. I noticed Patterson's door was open. His assistant caught my eye, smiled, and nodded toward the office. Patterson appeared in the doorway before I reached my desk. "Harper, my office, now." His tone was neutral, professional, but there was something in his eyes, a spark I had never seen before. The walk to his office felt like the longest 30 feet of my career. I thought about everything that had led to this moment. 6 years of work, countless late nights, quiet excellence in a field that rarely celebrated quiet anything. Whatever happened next, I had earned it. He closed the door behind me and gestured to the chair across from his desk. On the desk sat a single folder with my name on the tab. Beside it, a bottle of champagne. He had never offered me champagne before. My heart began to pound. Patterson sat across from me, not behind his desk. Equal seating, a deliberate choice. "Harper, the partners met last night. We have been watching you for years. Your work, your judgment, your integrity. What you have handled this past month with your family situation. Most people would have crumbled. You did not just survive it. You managed it with grace." He paused, letting the words settle. "The partnership committee has made a unanimous decision. We would like to offer you a position as partner. You would be the youngest partner in the firm's history, and the first woman to make partner before 30. I did not cry. Though I could have. I did not jump up and down, though I wanted to. I took a breath, steadied myself. I would be honored to accept. Patterson smiled and reached for the champagne. The cork popped with a sound like celebration. He poured 2 glasses and handed one to me. "To Harper Donovan, partner." We clinked glasses. The bubbles tasted like vindication. Word spread through the office within the hour. Colleagues stopped by my desk. Handshakes, congratulations, some I barely knew. Some who had worked beside me for years. I realized I had built something here. Community, respect, a place that was mine. That evening I called Marcus from my car. My voice cracked for the first time all day as I told him the news. He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I knew. I always knew." "How?" "Because you are you." The rest of the world just needed time to catch up. I drove home through the winter darkness, partner ringing in my ears, and thought about everyone who had ever told me I was not enough. I wished I could tell them. Then I realized I did not need to. I had told myself. That was the only audience that mattered. The trust fund settlement came through on January 22nd. Catherine Walsh called me into her office to sign the final documents. My father's lawyers had requested a settlement to avoid trial. They knew they could not win. The evidence was overwhelming. Richard would pay the full trust amount, plus interest and legal fees. Total $920,000. The terms were standard. He admitted no wrongdoing, but he had to sign documents acknowledging the trust existed. He had to provide full accounting of his actions as trustee. The settlement was a matter of public record. Everyone who cared to look would know what he had done. Catherine asked if I wanted to push for criminal referral. The district attorney would likely take the case. I thought about it. Prison for my father. The ultimate consequence. But that was not what I wanted. The money is enough. And the public record. Everyone who matters will know what he did. That is punishment enough for a man who lived for his reputation. I signed the settlement agreement. Catherine countersigned as witness. It was done. Eleanor's trust. Finally, fully mine. As I left her office, I did the math in my head. The trust fund, plus my recovered HD capital investment, plus my savings. I had more money than I had ever imagined. But the number that mattered most was smaller. 28. That was how many years my father had controlled my life. Now the ledger was balanced, not because of the money, because of the freedom it represented. On February 1st, I made a decision about what to do with part of the settlement. The money was mine. I could invest it, save it, spend it. But something kept pulling at me. Lily's story. The women like her who had nowhere to go. I researched domestic abuse organizations in Boston, found one that provided emergency housing and legal aid. They helped women escape situations exactly like Lily's. I made my choice. $100,000. Anonymous. No recognition needed. The donation would fund 6 months of emergency housing. Dozens of women would have a safe place because of it. I clicked submit on the donation form. No fanfare, no announcement, just quiet action. The kind my grandmother would have appreciated. Eleanor always said money is only valuable when it moves, when it helps. I texted Lily that evening, made a donation to a shelter in Boston, thought of you. Her response came quickly. You did not have to do that. I wanted to. Some good should come from all this. Some good already did. Look at us. That night, I sat with the donation receipt in my hand. $100,000. A year ago, I would have agonized over the decision. Money had always been precarious. Something to hold on to. Something that could be taken away. Now I understood. The money itself was never the point. It was what you did with it, who you helped, what you built. I tucked the receipt into a drawer beside my grandmother's letter. 2 pieces of paper, 2 kinds of legacy. My father made his final attempt on February 15th. I was in my new corner office at Wellington Partners when my assistant buzzed. There is someone here to see you. He says he is your father. My stomach dropped, then steadied. Tell security I will be right down. I did not invite him up. He did not deserve to see what I had built. The lobby confrontation was everything I expected. Richard Donovan stood near the reception desk looking older than he had at Christmas. Shrunken somehow. His suit was rumpled. His eyes were red-rimmed. Harper. Please, we need to talk. The company is gone. Sold. I have nothing left. Your mother moved to Florida. She could not take the shame. Brandon is in rehab. Court ordered after the creditors went to the police. I am alone. Do you understand? I have no one. He paused, something shifting in his expression. Maybe things went too far. Maybe I said things I should not have. But I am still your father. That has to mean something. I stood 6 feet away, close enough to see him, far enough to be safe. You told me I should never have existed. In front of 200 people, at Christmas. You stole my inheritance. You lied about my grandmother's trust for 7 years. You let Brandon try to forge my signature. And now you come here, to my workplace, asking for what? Forgiveness. A second chance. No. The word came out clear and final. I nodded to the security guard beside me. Please escort Mr. Donovan out. He is not welcome here. I turned and walked toward the elevator. I did not look back. The security guard was gentle but firm. I watched from the elevator bank as my father was guided toward the door. He looked back once, searching for my face. I met his eyes. Not with anger, not with satisfaction, with nothing, no reaction, no emotion. Just a woman who had finally stopped waiting for him to become the father he never was. The elevator doors closed, and Harper Donovan went back to work. The updates trickled in over the following weeks. Donovan Properties sold to a competitor for 40 cents on the dollar. Most employees retained by the new ownership. The Donovan name removed from the building within a week. My father received enough from the sale to pay his debts. Nothing more. Brandon completed his court-ordered rehab in New Hampshire. 90 days. Lily's divorce was finalized while he was inside. He did not contest anything. Too focused on survival. My mother settled in Naples, Florida. To be near friends, she claimed, but really to escape the whispers. Her book club, her church group, her social circle, all in Boston. All aware of what had happened. She was starting over at 62, alone and humiliated. My father moved into a small apartment outside the city. His country club membership was revoked. His golf buddies no longer returned calls. The man who once commanded rooms now ate dinner alone. I read each update without satisfaction. No joy in their suffering, just quiet recognition. Consequences exist. They always did. I had simply stopped protecting my family from them. Lily sent me a photo from California in late February. Her new apartment, small but sunny, a succulent on the windowsill. Starting over, the caption read, I smiled at the screen. Some people escaped and rebuilt, others collapsed under their own weight. The difference was not luck, it was choices. Lily chose to leave, Brandon chose to lie. My father chose pride over love. And I had finally chosen myself. Wedding planning began in March. Marcus and I spread brochures and guest lists across our dining table. We had moved in together the month before, our apartment now, our life. The guest list was small, 50 people maximum. Marcus's parents and sister, my colleagues including Patterson. Lily flying in from California. Theodore Ashford representing my grandmother's memory. Friends who had become family over years of quiet loyalty, conspicuously absent. Richard, Judith, Brandon. Their chairs did not exist. They were never reserved. One evening as we finalized the seating chart, Marcus looked up with a curious expression. No regrets. About not inviting them. I thought about the question carefully. The empty chairs where my parents should have been. The family I was born into versus the family I was building. No, you do not invite people to your future who spent your past trying to erase you. Marcus nodded and reached across the table to squeeze my hand. The wedding was 4 weeks away, and Harper Donovan, soon to be Harper Chen, was ready to begin the rest of her life. The morning of my wedding arrived with cherry blossoms and silence. Late April, 2025. I opened my eyes in the bridal suite of a small garden estate outside Boston, sunlight filtering through gauze curtains, the air sweet with spring. For a moment I simply lay still, breathing, waiting for the familiar knot of anxiety that had accompanied every significant day of my life. The dread of expectations, the mental preparation for performance. But the knot did not come. There was only anticipation, only joy. Today was the day I would marry the man who saw me completely, in a garden full of people who chose to be here. I touched the locket at my throat. Eleanor's locket. It had not left my neck since I was 10 years old. My grandmother's voice echoed in my memory. This was my mother's. Now it is yours. Whenever you forget who you are, touch this. Remember that someone saw you. My phone buzzed on the nightstand. A text from Marcus. Today I marry the strongest woman I have ever known. See you at the altar. Tears threatened already. I had spent 28 years wondering if I was too much or not enough. Today I would marry someone who had never asked me to be anything but myself. The bridal suite filled with warmth and laughter as the morning unfolded. Lily had flown in from California. She was doing my hair, her fingers gentle and sure. Marcus's sister Emma handled makeup, her chatter light and easy. Soft music played in the background. Champagne chilled in an ice bucket. No tension, no performance, no one trying to control anything. Just women helping a woman prepare for the best day of her life. I stepped into my dress and Lily buttoned the back. Simple, elegant, perfect. She met my eyes in the mirror. You look like a queen. I looked at my reflection and saw something I had never seen before. A woman who belonged to herself. Something old. Eleanor's locket. Something borrowed. Emma's grandmother's earrings. Something new. The dress. Something blue. A ribbon sewn into the hem, invisible but present. Lily finished my hair and touched my shoulder. Your grandmother would be so proud. My throat tightened. I know. I feel her here. Is that strange? Not strange at all. Love does not disappear. It just changes form. A knock interrupted us. Emma opened the door to find Theodore Ashford standing in the hallway. Dove gray suit. Kind eyes. He carried a small velvet box. I hope I am not intruding. His voice was soft. Eleanor asked me to give you something. On this day specifically. I have been holding it for years. My heart stopped. Another gift from my grandmother, reaching across time. Theodore entered and handed me the box. Eleanor gave this to me 3 months before she passed. She said, "Give this to Harper on her wedding day. If I am not there, she will need it." She made me promise. I have kept it in my safe ever since. I am sorry I could not give it sooner. I did not know what your father had done. I opened the box with trembling hands. Inside lay a delicate bracelet, diamonds and pearls, antique setting, and beneath it, a folded note in handwriting I would recognize anywhere. My dearest Harper, my phoenix. If you are reading this, you have found someone worthy of your heart. You have survived whatever storms came. You have built a life of your own. Wear this bracelet as my blessing. Know that I am with you. You were never too much. You were always exactly enough. Rise, my darling, rise and be free. All my love, forever. Grandma Eleanor. Tears fell. I could not stop them. Lily held me from one side, Emma from the other. Theodore's eyes glistened. The room was full of love. Not performance, just love. I clasped the bracelet around my wrist. It fit perfectly, as if Eleanor had known exactly who her granddaughter would become. I looked at myself in the mirror. The dress, the locket, the bracelet, the woman staring back. For the first time in my life, I did not see the girl who was erased. I saw the woman who had risen. I was ready. The ceremony space took my breath away. White chairs arranged in gentle curves, cherry blossom petals drifting in the breeze. 50 guests seated and waiting. Marcus standing at the altar, eyes already glistening. No one gave me away. I gave myself. I walked alone, head high, steps steady. This was my choice, my moment, my life. I passed Patterson in the front row. He nodded, eyes proud. I passed Lily, who mouthed, "You have got this." I passed Theodore, who touched his heart. People who showed up when showing up was a choice. No Richard, no Judith, no Brandon. Their chairs did not exist. They were never reserved. I did not feel their absence as loss. I felt it as freedom. I reached Marcus. He took my hands. His eyes were full of tears, of love, of certainty. "You are here," he whispered. "I am here." The officiant began. A gentle breeze swept through the garden, carrying cherry blossom petals across the aisle. One landed on my shoulder, soft as a kiss. I thought of Eleanor, of cardinals and letters and gifts that crossed time. I thought, you are here. You made it. You are watching. Phoenix was never just a nickname. It was a prophecy. Marcus spoke his vows first. "Harper, I have watched you walk through fire this year. I have watched you lose everything you thought was family. And I have watched you rebuild yourself from the ashes. You taught me that strength is not about never falling. It is about choosing to rise. I promise to stand beside you, not in front of you, not behind you, but beside you. I promise to see you, fully, always, without conditions. I promise that you will never have to earn my love. It is already yours." Then it was my turn. "Marcus, I spent 28 years believing I was not enough. I believed that love had to be earned, that belonging had a price. You showed me I was wrong. You never asked me to shrink. You never asked me to perform. You simply stayed. When staying was the hardest choice, I promised to choose you, every day, consciously, completely. I promised to build a family with you where love is not a transaction. I promised to be the woman you already see, because you saw her before I did. We exchanged rings, simple bands, meaningful inscriptions. His read, "I see you." Mine read, "I choose you." The officiant pronounced us married. Marcus cupped my face in his hands and kissed me. Gentle, certain, real. Applause erupted. Lily was crying. Patterson was clapping. Theodore stood with his hand over his heart. And I was finally home. Not because I had arrived somewhere new, but because I had finally stopped running from myself. The reception unfolded in fairy lights and laughter, music, dancing, joy. At some point I stepped away for a quiet moment. I stood at the edge of the garden watching. Marcus dancing with his mother, Lily laughing with Emma, Theodore telling stories to Patterson. A community built from choice, not obligation. I thought about the girl I used to be, the one who sent money home and asked for nothing. The one who attended parties where she was invisible, the one who believed she was a backup plan. That girl was gone, not erased, transformed. She had carried me to this moment. She deserved gratitude, not shame. The past was not forgotten, it was integrated, like a scar, visible, part of me, but no longer bleeding. I did not need to hide it. I did not need to display it. It simply existed, a map of where I had been. Marcus appeared beside me with 2 glasses of champagne. "Escaping your own wedding," he teased. Not escaping, just looking. At what? I gazed at the fairy lights, the dancing guests, the life I had built. At proof. Proof that the girl who should never have existed learned how to live. Later, as the reception wound down, I sat with my husband at the sweetheart table. My husband. The words still felt new. I looked at him and felt peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of meaning. Everything I endured led to this moment. I would not trade the journey because the journey made me. Some families are not broken by distance. They are revealed by it. Silence can be power when words have failed. Truth does not need permission to move forward. Apologies designed to manipulate are not apologies at all. You do not need revenge when you have freedom. Eleanor's bracelet caught the light on my wrist. Her locket rested against my heart. Her love lived in everything I had become. A grandmother who saw me before anyone else did. A legacy of being seen, passed forward. I did not know what came next. But I knew who I was. I knew who I was with. And I knew that I would never again wait for permission to exist. The night ended with stars. Marcus and I were the last ones remaining. Fairy lights dimming, music fading, just 2 people beginning forever. I looked up at the sky and thought about Christmas Eve. The night I was erased, the night I walked out without looking back, every choice that led from that door to this garden. The girl who should never have existed had finally started to live, and she was just getting started. If you are listening to this story, maybe something in it felt familiar. Maybe you have been told you were too much or not enough. Maybe you have given and wondered why it was never returned. Maybe you are still waiting for permission to choose yourself. This is your permission. You do not need their approval to exist. You do not need their apology to heal. You do not need revenge. Truth has its own gravity, and it will move when you let it. I would love to hear from you. Tell me in the comments what family means to you now. Is it blood or is it choice? Where are you listening from, and what part of this story stayed with you? If this resonated, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more stories about courage and truth and choosing yourself, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. Because every story of survival deserves to be heard, and yours matters too. I am Harper, and I finally know who I am. Thank you for listening.